Okay, hello. So today we are going to have a look at setting up, bringing some of our own assets into Unreal to set up a first-person shooter. So this is just the sections I am going to be cutting out. I don't usually work that fast. This is on fast forward because it's a relatively lengthy and tedious process. So what I'm going to do here is just make some modular chunks out of this building so that we can recreate it within Unreal and shoot bullets at it as you do in game development. So I've just sped this up. There's a much slower and more comprehensive version of this on my other YouTube site, Andy Sandham's site, which walks you through at normal speed. So really this is just a case of me adjusting the transforms, and in this case just correcting the perspective on the images. So I'm going to want to make this this doorway. Okay, so we've gone past the doorway, that's disappeared into the ether. So yeah, it's really just a case of I'm just pulling the transforms and distorting it to straighten it out, so that and then I'm going to do a filter offset, which means that I can just make sure it's wraparoundable. All this explained in detail in the videos on my other YouTube channel. So I actually only need the two pillars. I don't need the chunk on the right hand side, but I haven't worked that out yet. Okay, so yeah, it's really just a case of making sure that we can't see any seams. So what I'm doing is I'm just using the magic, the rubber stamp tool, and just fiddling with that, and then just fiddling with the transforms and the distorts, cropping it. At some point when I've got a correct crop on it, we're going to probably use the filter offset. So and we are filter offset. So if we move that along now, we can see that we've got a seam there where the just at the side of the selectable box. So really what I'm trying to do is just make sure the seam isn't visible. Also the fact is that the masonry line doesn't continue across the building, so I'm just correcting that. If you see that line in the middle, so that needs to continue right across the front of the building, so I need to make sure that all lines up. It's all very exciting stuff. So yeah, just kind of aligning the windows. So the angle I took the original photograph at, I must have been falling over. So yeah, just kind of correcting it all, making it all look decent. The rubber stamp is a very useful tool for just kind of disguising seams. Also, you know, if you just cut out little non-regular brushes of, for instance, bricks, and then paste them over where you've got a seam, then that usually, like that sort of thing I'm just doing there, it's usually quite hard to spot the pattern of where you've adjusted the seam. Okay, so that's the next bit. Again, I imagine this will be continuing for some time. 10 minutes, in fact. Okay, so again, it's just a case of adjusting the transform. This one's probably a little bit easier, so I'm just making sure that there is actually a perspective tool that you can utilise to make sure that you are getting your images in straight on, as opposed to with distortion or distance perspective on them. Okay, another one. This one's got grass on. It's an extra added treat. Okay, so that's the offsets. That's the main tool you use for working out if it's going to be wrap roundable, which obviously you need. If I'm going to use this as modular pieces and snap them together, I need it to wrap along the horizontal and usually the vertical as well. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So here we go with what I was talking about, with just cutting out brushes, rectangular brushes, just and then just pasting them down. And then what you need to do is just make sure that you kind of hide the patterns. So you can see down the bottom we have it's quite obvious that we've got a repeating pattern on that bush. So yeah, bricks are always quite good because just cutting out a brush and pasting it, bricks of that scale don't really have a kind of recognisable pattern anyway, so it's quite easy just to cut and paste to cover up seams, which is the whole point of this entire tedious exercise. So I think at this point I realise that we do need what I'm going to do is I'm going to build geometry, and I'm just going to I'm going to actually build the physical geometry so that we have the physical roof section. What I mean is I'm going to actually cut out the geometry so that we just have a conical roof segment. So the texture needs to map the geometry as we're going to planar map it and push it through the geo. So this is really the entire point of this, is we're creating facades, and facades are just supposed to be very basic flat structures, very much like in your 1950s Western TV series, where you would just have a flat facade of a film set with just a series of buildings down the high street, saloon, etc., where it would just be propped up behind and it would just be a flat face. So this is kind of exactly what we're doing here with these facades, because in games obviously as long as it has a little bit of depth, you're not going to and it has collision. You'll notice in a lot of games like GTA, for instance, if you actually go up and look at windows, it's changed a bit now, but if you look at shop windows, you'll notice that they're flat. Right, I need to talk about this. That's me trying to make power of two textures. So usually this used to actually help with the processing speed on computers when it was analysing the textures. Not as important now, but it's quite useful to with regards to snapping your textures together to keep them at a power of 2. Probably not even remotely important anymore, but just kind of, I've always perceived it as good practice. I was talking about GTA and shops. So if you walk up to the shops in GTA, you'll notice that you used to notice it was a flat texture pasted on the pane of the window, but now they actually do have some depth because of the fact that we now have much more powerful computers. Okay, so as I said, we're just pasting all these together, so I just need to make sure that from a texture perspective that I'm getting that line down the front of the building. There we are. You can see the colour's slightly different. I think I've just adjusted the colour. So a good way to adjust your colour when you've got all your segments together is to put a new layer in and just flood fill with a similar colour, like for instance in this case it'd be sort of pinky orange, and then you just change the layer to an overlay layer, and it kind of means all the colours of your textures tend to look like they're matching up. Okay, and here is a roof bit, so I just need to make sure this is going to wrap around. So this is pretty much kind of what I used to do all day in my job. In between that and drinking coffee. Okay, so again just rubber stamping it. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure I've just got a rough texture for these chimney stacks, so we can build those in geometry. So when you look up, you'll be able to see that you've got chimney stacks up there. They're going to be quite far away from the player, so the textures don't need to be outstandingly high resolution, or they also don't need to be particularly detailed. Got that in the end. Okay, so that's pretty much it with regards getting all of the textures together. And so what we're going to do now is we are going to take these over into Maya, I think. Okay, that'll do. Bye bye.